TLDR, my maid of honor stole my wedding plans, tried to sabotage my relationship, and nearly destroyed my career. What she didn't expect was that I'd been documenting everything. The revenge was so perfect, even I didn't see it coming. You know that feeling when someone you trusted completely shows their true colors? When the mask finally slips and you realize the person you called your best friend was actually your worst enemy? Well, buckle up because this story is a wild ride that took 3 years to unfold. And the ending? Chef's kiss. Let me start from the beginning. My name's not important, but let's call me Jess. I'm 28, work in marketing for a tech company in Portland, Oregon, and up until 3 years ago, I thought I had the perfect best friend. Her name was Madison Riley, and we'd been inseparable since college. She was my maid of honor when I got engaged to my now husband David in 2021, or at least, she was supposed to be. Madison and I met during freshman year at University of Oregon. She was this bubbly, charismatic girl who seemed to have everything together. Perfect grades, perfect boyfriend, perfect internships. I was the more reserved one, the planner, the one who helped her study for exams while she helped me come out of my shell. We were roommates for 3 years, shared everything, and I genuinely thought we'd be friends forever. After college, we both ended up in Portland. She got a job at a boutique marketing firm downtown, while I started at a tech startup. We lived in different neighborhoods, but saw each other constantly. Brunches every Sunday, girls' nights every Friday, vacations together. When I started dating David, she was the first person I told. When he proposed after 2 years, she cried happy tears with me in my kitchen. "I can't believe my best friend is getting married," she squealed, jumping up and down. "I'm going to be the best maid of honor ever. We're going to plan the most incredible wedding." And I believed her. God, I was so naive. The first red flag should have been when she insisted on being involved in every single detail, not just offering to help, but demanding to be included in every decision. Venue selection, dress shopping, menu tasting, flower arrangements. Madison had an opinion on everything and wasn't shy about sharing it. "Jess, honey, are you sure about this venue?" she'd say, looking at the gorgeous vineyard David and I had fallen in love with. "It's so rustic. Don't you want something more elegant? More sophisticated?" Or when we were dress shopping, "That dress is beautiful, but it's so traditional. You should try something more modern, more you." Except the traditional dress was exactly what I wanted, and she knew it. At first, I thought she was just being helpful. Maybe a little overwhelming, but her heart was in the right place. Madison had always been opinionated, and she had great taste. I figured she just wanted everything to be perfect for my big day. The second red flag came when she started questioning my relationship with David. Little comments here and there that seemed innocent enough on the surface, but felt like poison darts. "David's so lucky to have you," she'd say. "You're way too good for him." Or, "Are you sure he's ready for marriage? He seems so immature sometimes." When I called her out on it, she'd laugh and say she was just looking out for me, that it was her job as my best friend to make sure I wasn't settling. But something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. The third red flag, and this is where things started getting really weird, was when she began showing up places unexpectedly. Places where David and I were supposed to be alone. David and I had a standing dinner date every Thursday at this little Italian place downtown. It was our thing, just the two of us, catching up on the week. One Thursday in November, we were halfway through our appetizer when Madison appeared at our table. "Oh my God, what a coincidence!" she gushed, sliding into the booth next to me without being invited. "I was just walking by and saw you two through the window. You don't mind if I join, do you?" David looked uncomfortable, but I didn't want to make a scene. "Of course not," I said, though inside I was annoyed. She stayed for the entire dinner, dominating the conversation and barely letting David get a word in. This happened 3 more times over the next month. Always coincidences. Always places where David and I were supposed to be alone together, but I didn't put it all together until the day I found out what she was really doing. It was a Saturday in December, and I was home with the flu. David was supposed to come over with soup and movies, but he texted saying he'd be late because he'd run into Madison at the grocery store and she needed help with something. I thought it was sweet that he was helping my best friend. What I didn't know was that Madison had been tracking our locations through social media and the Find My Friends app I'd shared with her months earlier. She knew exactly where David was going and when, and she'd been orchestrating these coincidental meetings. I only found out because David left his phone at my apartment, and Madison kept texting him. At first, I ignored it. It wasn't my place to read his messages. But when the texts kept coming, and I saw her name pop up with previews like, "Thanks for earlier," and "You're so sweet for helping," my curiosity got the better of me. The full conversation made my blood run cold. "Thanks for helping me with those heavy groceries today. You're such a gentleman." "No problem. Happy to help." "I don't know what I'd do without you. Jess is so lucky to have someone who cares about her friends too." "Of course you're important to her, so you're important to me." You know, I've been thinking, do you ever wonder if you and Jess are rushing into things? Marriage is such a big step. What do you mean? What do you mean? I just worry about her sometimes. She's been so stressed about the wedding planning. She snaps at me all the time now. I'm starting to wonder if she's really ready for this kind of commitment. Maybe you both need more time? Jess has been stressed, but that's normal for wedding planning, right? I don't know. She's been saying some things about you lately. Nothing terrible. Just little comments about feeling like you don't understand her vision for the wedding. I probably shouldn't even mention it. David, what kind of comments? I really shouldn't say. She's my best friend, and I don't want to betray her confidence. But I care about both of you, and I hate seeing you guys struggle. I sat there staring at the phone, my hands shaking. None of that was true. I'd never said anything negative about David to Madison. If anything, I'd been gushing about how supportive and understanding he was throughout the entire planning process. But there was more. Actually, can I ask you something? And please don't tell Jess I asked. Sure. Do you think she's been acting differently lately? More controlling? More bridezilla-ish? I mean, she's definitely focused on the wedding details, but I wouldn't say controlling. Really? Because she's been micromanaging everything about the wedding. She won't let me help with anything anymore, unless it's exactly the way she wants it. She made me order flowers 3 different times because the shade of pink wasn't quite right. I'm starting to feel like she doesn't trust my judgment at all. Again, complete lies. I'd been grateful for Madison's help, and had never made her reorder anything. In fact, I'd been letting her take the lead on most of the decorative details because she'd insisted she had better taste. The texts went on like this for weeks. Madison systematically planting seeds of doubt about my character, my readiness for marriage, my treatment of her. She was careful never to say anything directly negative, always framing her concerns as worry for both of us, always claiming to be caught in the middle of some conflict that didn't exist. I scrolled through weeks of messages, watching her slowly build a narrative that painted me as a stressed-out, controlling, ungrateful bridezilla who was taking advantage of her generous best friend and rushing into a marriage I wasn't ready for. The worst part? David was starting to believe her. His responses became shorter, more distant. He started asking me questions about my stress levels, whether I was happy with our timeline, if I felt like we were communicating well. Questions that came directly from Madison's planted concerns. I wanted to confront her immediately, but something held me back. Maybe it was the systematic way she'd been building her case, or maybe it was the realization that this level of manipulation suggested something much deeper than simple jealousy. Either way, I decided to wait and see how far she would take it. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, Madison called me crying. Jess, I need to tell you something, and you're going to hate me for it, she sobbed into the phone. What's wrong? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. It's about David. I didn't want to say anything because I knew it would hurt you, but I can't keep this secret anymore. My grip tightened on the phone. What secret? God, this is so hard to say. He's been flirting with me. Not obviously, just little comments and looks. And yesterday, when he helped me with groceries, he walked me to my car and, Jess, I think he tried to kiss me. I sat in stunned silence. She was lying. I knew she was lying because I'd read the texts. But the level of manipulation was breathtaking. I pushed him away immediately, she continued. I told him that he was engaged to my best friend and that I would never do anything to hurt you. But Jess, I'm so worried. What if he's having second thoughts about the wedding? What if he's not ready to commit to you? She was crying harder now, really selling the performance. I don't know what to do. I don't want to ruin your relationship, but I also can't pretend this didn't happen. You deserve to know the truth. Did you tell him you were going to tell me? I managed to ask. Yes, and he begged me not to. He said it was just cold feet, that he loves you and wants to marry you. But Jess, what if it happens again? What if next time I'm not there to stop it? I hung up the phone and immediately called David. When he answered, I could hear the guilt in his voice before he even spoke. Hey babe, how are you feeling? Madison just called me, I said without preamble. Silence. Then, Jess, I can explain. And there it was. He believed her story. My own fiancé believed that he had tried to kiss my best friend when I had written proof that the entire scenario was fabricated. Explain what exactly? I asked. I don't know what happened. I was helping her with groceries and we were talking, and suddenly she was telling me that I'd tried to kiss her. I swear to God, Jess, I don't remember doing anything like that. I gave her a hug goodbye. Maybe that's what she meant. But she seemed so upset, and I didn't want to make it worse by arguing with her. The manipulation was perfect. Madison had convinced David that something had happened while making sure he couldn't remember the details clearly enough to contradict her story. She'd gaslit him into believing his own actions while positioning herself as the reluctant truth-teller who was only looking out for my best interests. That night, David came over to talk. He was a mess. Apologizing for something he wasn't even sure he'd done, promising it would never happen again, suggesting maybe we should postpone the wedding until he figured out why he was self-sabotaging. I held him while he spiraled, watching Madison's plan work exactly as she'd intended. She'd found a way to create chaos in my relationship while making herself look like the hero of the story. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She didn't know I'd seen the texts. I spent the next few days thinking about my options. I could show David the messages and prove that Madison was lying, but that would only solve the immediate problem. Madison would just deny everything, claim I'd somehow faked the texts, and probably escalate her campaign against me. No, I needed something more comprehensive. Something that would expose not just this lie, but the entire pattern of manipulation she'd been building for months. So I decided to play along. I think you're right, I told David that weekend. Maybe we are rushing into things. Maybe we should postpone the wedding. His face fell. Really? Madison's been saying the same thing, I lied. She thinks we need more time to make sure we're compatible for the long term. Madison said that? She's been worried about us for a while. I didn't want to admit it, but she's probably right. She knows me better than anyone. Over the next week, I started planting my own seeds. I told Madison that David and I were having serious conversations about postponing the wedding. I mentioned that we'd been fighting more, that I was having doubts about his commitment level. Madison ate it up. She was so sympathetic, so supportive. She suggested maybe I should take some time apart from David to really think about what I wanted. She offered to help me cancel vendors if needed. She even said she'd support whatever decision I made, even if it meant calling off the wedding entirely. But I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. She thought she was winning. Meanwhile, I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of every text, saved every voicemail, started recording our phone conversations, legal in Oregon with one-party consent. I created a detailed timeline of her manipulation campaign, complete with evidence. And then I set my trap. I told Madison that David and I had decided to take a break, that I was thinking about moving back home to Seattle for a while to clear my head, that I wasn't sure if I was cut out for marriage after all. "Oh, honey," she said, rubbing my back as I fake cried into my coffee. "I'm so sorry it's come to this, but maybe it's for the best. You deserve someone who's completely committed to you." "You've been such a good friend through all of this," I sniffled. "I don't know what I would have done without you. That's what best friends are for. I'll always have your back, no matter what." 2 hours later, she texted David. "Hey, I heard about you and Jess. I'm really sorry things didn't work out. We're just taking a break. It's not over." "I know, but maybe this is a sign. Maybe you both need to explore what else is out there before settling down." "What do you mean?" "I just think you're both so young, and you've only ever been with each other seriously. How do you know this is right if you haven't experienced anything else?" "I don't need to experience anything else. I love Jess. I love her too, but love isn't always enough. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone go to find their true happiness." "Are you saying I should break up with her?" "I'm saying maybe you should both explore your options while you're on this break. See what else is out there. If you're meant to be together, you'll find your way back to each other." "I guess. I know this is hard, but I've been thinking, if you want to talk through your feelings with someone who knows Jess really well, I'm here. Maybe I can help you figure out what's best for both of you." And there it was, the real endgame. Madison didn't just want to break us up. She wanted David for herself. Over the next few days, she ramped up her campaign. She started suggesting that maybe David and I were better as friends, that we'd grown apart, that I'd seemed happier since we'd started our break. She offered to be his sounding board, his shoulder to cry on, his guide through this difficult time. She even suggested they grab dinner to talk about the situation. Just as friends, of course. Just to help him process his feelings about me. David, confused and hurt, and thinking he'd lost the love of his life, agreed. They had dinner on a Thursday night. I know because I was sitting 3 tables away in a wig and sunglasses, recording everything on my phone. Madison pulled out all the stops, leaning in close when he talked, touching his arm, gazing into his eyes with deep sympathy. She told him how proud she was of him for being mature enough to recognize when something wasn't working. How some people were just better as friends. How he deserved someone who appreciated all his wonderful qualities. Someone like her. She didn't say it directly, of course. Madison was too smart for that. But the implication was clear in every gesture, every look, every carefully chosen word. "You know, David," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand, "I've always thought you were such a catch. Jess is lucky to have had you in her life, even if it doesn't work out romantically." "Thanks, Madison. That means a lot. I just hate seeing you so sad. You have so much love to give, and the right person is going to be so grateful for that someday." "Yeah, maybe." I know this might sound crazy, but have you ever thought that maybe the reason things didn't work with Jess is because you were meant to be with someone else? Someone who really sees you for who you are? David looked confused. What do you mean? Madison's smile was predatory. I mean, sometimes the person who's perfect for you is right in front of you, and you just don't see it because you're focused on someone else. She leaned in closer. David, I need to tell you something. I've had feelings for you for a while now. I tried to ignore them because you were with Jess, but now that you're on a break, I can't help wondering if maybe this is the universe giving us a chance. David pulled his hand away. Madison, I can't. Jess is your best friend. Was my best friend, Madison corrected. And honestly, she never deserved you. I've been watching you two together, and she takes you for granted. She doesn't see how amazing you are, but I do. She reached for his hand again. I know this is complicated, but sometimes love is complicated. Sometimes you have to take a risk for happiness. David stood up abruptly. I need to go. David? Wait. I'm sorry, Madison. I can't do this. Whatever problems Jess and I have, this isn't the solution. He left money on the table and walked out. Madison sat there for a moment, her mask slipping completely. The sweet, supportive best friend was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone cold and calculating and furious that her plan hadn't worked. I followed David outside, staying far enough back that he wouldn't see me. He got in his car and sat there for a few minutes, clearly shaken. Then he pulled out his phone and called me. Jess? Can we talk? I think I figured out what's been happening. I smiled in the darkness. I'll be right over. When I got to David's apartment, he was pacing in his living room, running his hands through his hair. I think Madison's been lying to us, he said without preamble. I think she's been manipulating both of us. What makes you say that? I asked, though I already knew. He told me about the dinner, about her confession, about the way she talked about me like I was some kind of obstacle to their happiness. How she tried to convince him that our relationship was doomed and that he should move on with her instead. None of the things she said I did really happened, did they? He asked. The almost kiss, the flirting. She made it all up. Show me your phone, I said quietly. David handed it over, and I scrolled through weeks of Madison's messages, watching his face as he reread them with new understanding. Seeing how she'd twisted innocent conversations, planted doubts, built a narrative designed to drive us apart. Oh my God, he whispered. She's been planning this for months. Actually, I said, pulling out my own phone, she's been planning this for longer than that. I showed him my evidence file, screenshots of her messages, recordings of our conversations, the timeline I'd built of her manipulation campaign. His face went white as he realized the scope of what she'd done. You knew? He asked. You knew this whole time? I found out about 2 weeks ago when you left your phone here. I've been documenting everything since then. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed her to show her true colors completely. If I'd just shown you the texts, she could have explained them away somehow. But this? I gestured to his phone, to the evidence of their dinner conversation I'd recorded. This is undeniable. David sank onto his couch, putting his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, Jess. I should have trusted you. I should have seen what she was doing. She's very good at what she does, I said, sitting down next to him. She's been manipulating people for years, probably. We just happen to be her latest targets. So what do we do now? I smiled. Now we make sure she never does this to anyone else again. The first part of my revenge was simple. I sent copies of all my evidence to Madison's employer. See, Madison worked for a boutique marketing firm that specialized in personal branding for high-profile clients. Trust and discretion were huge parts of their business model. They couldn't afford to have employees who were willing to lie, manipulate, and sabotage relationships for personal gain. I crafted a careful email to her boss, explaining that I discovered Madison had been engaging in a sustained campaign of harassment and manipulation against me and my fiancé. I included the timeline, the screenshots, the recordings, everything. I'm bringing this to your attention, I wrote, because Madison's behavior demonstrates a pattern of dishonesty and manipulation that could pose a risk to your clients. I thought you should be aware of the character of the person representing your company. I sent the email on a Monday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, Madison had been fired. She called me in hysterics. Jess, what did you do? They won't even tell me why I was fired, just that they were restructuring my position. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said innocently. That's awful, though. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. This is devastating. I love that job. I had clients who trusted me. The irony was delicious. But losing her job was just the beginning. Madison had built her personal brand around being the perfect friend, the loyal confidant, the supportive bestie who always had your back. Her social media was carefully curated to show her living her best life, surrounded by friends who adored her. She'd been documenting our friendship extensively over the years. Photos of us at brunch, screenshots of sweet text exchanges, posts about how grateful she was to have such an amazing best friend. She'd even posted about my engagement, talking about how excited she was to be my maid of honor. So when I posted my own social media update, it had quite an impact. It's with a heavy heart that I'm sharing this, but I feel like I owe it to my other friends to be honest about what I've discovered, I wrote, alongside a carefully selected collage of screenshots from Madison's manipulation campaign. I recently found out that my former best friend and maid of honor has been systematically lying to me and my fiancé for months in an attempt to break us up so she could pursue him herself. The level of deception and manipulation has been truly shocking. I'm sharing this not to hurt anyone, but because I believe people deserve to know who they're really dealing with. Trust is the foundation of all relationships, and when someone violates that trust so completely, there have to be consequences. I'm grateful to have discovered the truth before my wedding, and I'm moving forward with people in my life who actually support my happiness. I tagged Madison in the post. The response was immediate and devastating. Friends, colleagues, acquaintances, everyone who had seen Madison as the perfect friend suddenly had a very different perspective. The screenshots were damning, showing her calculated cruelty in her own words. Madison's phone started ringing within minutes. Mutual friends demanding explanations. Her other friends questioning whether she'd manipulated them too. Her own family asking what the hell was going on. She tried to control the damage, posting her own response claiming that I'd taken things out of context and was having a mental breakdown due to wedding stress. But the evidence spoke for itself. The screenshots showed timestamps, the recordings were clear, and the pattern was undeniable. Plus, I'd been smart about timing. I posted my expose on a Friday afternoon, giving it the entire weekend to spread and gain momentum while Madison was scrambling to respond. By Monday, she'd lost half her social media followers. By Wednesday, she'd deactivated all her accounts. But the best part was still coming. See, Madison had been planning her own wedding for later that year. She'd gotten engaged 6 months after me, and I now realized it was probably part of her competitive response to my happiness. She couldn't stand that I was getting married first, so she'd accelerated her own timeline to try to upstage me. Her fiancé, a nice guy named Trevor who I'd met a few times, reached out to me after seeing my social media post. "Hey Jess, I'm really sorry about what Madison did to you and David. I had no idea she was capable of something like that." "Thanks, Trevor. I appreciate that. Can I ask you something? Do you think she's been lying to me too?" It was an interesting question. I thought about what I'd learned about Madison's character over the past few weeks. The systematic nature of her deception, the way she'd been able to maintain multiple conflicting narratives simultaneously, the complete lack of remorse when she thought she was winning. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But if I were you, I'd start paying attention to whether her stories about other people in her life add up." Trevor went quiet for a moment. Then, "Actually, now that you mention it, there have been some things that didn't quite make sense. Stories about her coworkers, her family, even her ex-boyfriends. I always just trusted her version of events." "Maybe it's worth having a conversation with some of those people directly," I suggested, just to get a fuller picture. Trevor took my advice. Over the next few weeks, he started reaching out to Madison's family, her former colleagues, her ex-boyfriends. What he found was a pattern of manipulation and deception going back years. Madison had a history of creating drama between friends, spreading rumors, and playing people against each other. She'd been fired from previous jobs for similar behavior. She'd cheated on multiple boyfriends, while convincing them their relationships were in trouble for other reasons. Trevor called off their engagement. Madison's world collapsed completely. She'd lost her job, her social circle, her fiancé, and her reputation all within a month. The carefully constructed image she'd built over years was destroyed by her own documented words. She made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. She showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning, crying and begging for forgiveness. "Jess, please, you have to help me," she sobbed at my doorstep. "Everyone hates me. I've lost everything. I know I made mistakes, but I never meant for things to go this far." "Mistakes?" I repeated. "Madison, you spent months systematically trying to destroy my relationship so you could steal my fiancé. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated campaign of manipulation. I was just confused about my feelings. I never actually intended to hurt you. You told David I'd been talking badly about him. You convinced him he tried to kiss you when nothing happened. You planted seeds of doubt about our entire relationship. How is any of that not intended to hurt me?" "I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly." "No, you were thinking very clearly. You were thinking strategically. You identified what you wanted and you developed a plan to get it, regardless of who you hurt in the process." Madison's tears dried up, and for a moment, I saw the real her again. Cold, calculating, furious that her plan hadn't worked. "Fine," she said. "You want to destroy my life over this? You win. But don't pretend you're some innocent victim. You're just as calculating as I am. The only difference is your plan worked." "You're right," I said. "I am calculating. The difference is I only used that skill to defend myself against someone who was trying to destroy my life. You used it to attack someone who trusted you. She left without another word. I never saw her again. But the story doesn't end there. About 6 months later, I got a call from a woman named Rebecca, who said she'd found my contact information through a mutual friend. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out," she said, "but I heard about what happened with Madison Riley, and I think she's doing the same thing to me." Rebecca worked at a company where Madison had recently been hired. Madison had become fast friends with Rebecca, positioning herself as a mentor and confidant. But Rebecca had started noticing inconsistencies in Madison's stories about their other colleagues. "She's been telling me that Sarah from accounting has been spreading rumors about me, but when I asked Sarah about it directly, she had no idea what I was talking about," Rebecca explained. "And Madison keeps making little comments about my boyfriend, suggesting he's not right for me." I shared my experience with Rebecca and helped her document the pattern of manipulation she was seeing. Rebecca was able to address the situation before it escalated, and Madison found herself isolated at her new job as well. Over the next year, I heard from 3 more women who'd been targeted by Madison in similar ways. Each time, I shared my story and helped them see the pattern of behavior they were dealing with. Madison, it turned out, had been using the same playbook for years. Target someone with something she wanted: a boyfriend, a job opportunity, a social circle. Position herself as their friend and ally, then systematically undermine them while positioning herself as the better alternative. She'd gotten away with it for so long because her victims had been isolated, each thinking they were dealing with a unique situation. But once we started connecting with each other, the pattern became undeniable. Madison moved to a different city eventually, probably trying to start fresh somewhere no one knew her history. But the internet is forever, and my original social media post had been shared widely enough that a simple Google search of her name brought up the whole story. As for David and me, our relationship came out stronger than ever. Going through Madison's manipulation campaign together taught us to communicate more openly, to trust each other more completely, and to recognize the red flags of people who don't have our best interests at heart. We had our wedding the following spring, exactly as we'd originally planned. Our new maid of honor was my college roommate, Sarah, who flew in from Chicago and did an amazing job without once trying to sabotage my relationship or steal my fiancé. The venue was perfect, the flowers were beautiful, and Madison was nowhere to be found. It was exactly the day we dreamed of. During my maid of honor speech, Sarah made a joke about how she'd managed to plan an entire wedding without falling in love with the groom, which got a big laugh from everyone who knew the Madison story. But the best part of my revenge wasn't destroying Madison's life, though I admit there was some satisfaction in that. The best part was realizing that I was stronger and smarter than I'd given myself credit for. I'd always been the quiet one, the one who avoided confrontation, the one who trusted everyone and assumed the best in people. Madison had counted on that personality when she targeted me. She thought I'd be easy to manipulate and destroy. She was wrong. When pushed into a corner, I discovered I had a spine of steel and a talent for strategic thinking that surprised even me. I documented evidence like a detective, set traps like a chess master, and executed my revenge with surgical precision. I'd learned that being kind doesn't mean being weak, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is protect yourself and others from people who would abuse that kindness. Madison taught me that I'm capable of fighting back when I need to. And while I wouldn't wish for another experience like that, I'm grateful for the lesson. These days, I'm more careful about who I trust, but I haven't let Madison's betrayal make me cynical. I still believe most people are good. I still give people the benefit of the doubt. I still open my heart to new friendships, but I also trust my instincts more now. When something feels off, I pay attention to that feeling instead of dismissing it. When someone's actions don't match their words, I notice. When someone seems too interested in my personal business or too eager to create drama, I keep my distance. And if someone tries to manipulate me or the people I love, well, let's just say I've learned I'm very good at documenting evidence and building a case. Madison thought she could destroy my life and take what was mine. Instead, she gave me the greatest gift of all. She showed me exactly how strong I really am. The sweetest revenge wasn't destroying her life. It was building an even better one for myself. David and I just celebrated our 2nd wedding anniversary. We bought a house, adopted a dog, and are talking about starting a family. We have amazing friends who genuinely support our relationship and would never dream of trying to sabotage it. Sometimes people ask if I feel bad about what happened to Madison, about how completely her life imploded after her plan backfired. Honestly, I don't. She made calculated choices to hurt people who trusted her. She destroyed relationships, damaged careers, and caused emotional trauma to multiple people over the years. The consequences she faced were the natural result of her own actions, not some cruel punishment I inflicted. The truth is, I sleep peacefully at night, knowing that Madison can't hurt anyone else the way she hurt me. That's worth more than any guilt I might feel about her downfall. But the story gets even better, because apparently Madison never learned her lesson. About a year after our wedding, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't recognize. The profile showed a professional-looking woman named Amanda Chen, who worked in HR at a tech company in Austin, Texas. "Hi, Jess," the message read. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out, but I found your information through some mutual connections, and I wanted to ask you about Madison Riley. She's applied for a position at our company, and during the background check process, your social media post about her behavior came up. Would you be willing to speak with me about your experience?" I agreed to a phone call, and Amanda explained that Madison had applied for a senior marketing position at her company. During the interview process, she'd been charming and impressive, with a great portfolio and excellent references. But the background check had flagged some concerning social media activity, including my original post exposing her manipulation campaign. "We take workplace culture very seriously here," Amanda explained. "Trust and collaboration are core values for us. If there's a pattern of manipulative behavior, we need to know about it before we make a hiring decision." I told Amanda the whole story, emphasizing that I wasn't trying to sabotage Madison's career prospects, but felt obligated to share factual information about documented behavior. I also put her in touch with Trevor, Madison's ex-fiancé, and two of the other women who'd been targeted by Madison's manipulation campaigns. Amanda thanked me for my time and said they'd take all the information into consideration. Madison didn't get the job. What's more, Amanda was connected to other HR professionals in the Austin area, and word quietly spread through their network about Madison's history. She found herself mysteriously unable to land any of the senior positions she was applying for, despite her impressive credentials on paper. I found out about this through Rebecca, who'd kept in touch with me over the years. Rebecca had a friend in Austin who'd mentioned hearing about a woman named Madison Riley who was having trouble finding work despite being qualified for the position she was seeking. "It seems like she's developed a bit of a reputation in certain professional circles," Rebecca told me. "Not openly blacklisted, but people talk. And when someone has a documented history of workplace manipulation, HR departments tend to be very cautious." I felt a mix of satisfaction and sympathy. On one hand, Madison was experiencing the long-term consequences of her choices. On the other hand, it seemed like she was genuinely struggling to rebuild her life, and part of me wondered if she'd learned from her mistakes. That question was answered about 6 months later, when I got another unexpected phone call. "Is this Jess Hamilton?" the voice asked. "Hamilton is my married name." "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Kyle Morrison. I live in Austin, and I think Madison Riley is targeting my girlfriend." My blood ran cold. "Tell me what's happening." Kyle explained that Madison had befriended his girlfriend Lucy at a yoga class 3 months earlier. Madison had positioned herself as a mentor figure, offering career advice and emotional support, but Kyle had started noticing some concerning patterns. "She keeps making little comments about our relationship," Kyle said. "Nothing obvious, just suggestions that maybe Lucy deserves someone more ambitious, more supportive. And she's been encouraging Lucy to spend more time with this guy from her work who she says would be perfect for her." "Has Lucy started pulling away from you?" I asked. "Yeah, actually. She's been more distant lately, asking weird questions about my commitment level and whether I see a future with her. Questions that don't sound like her, if you know what I mean." I knew exactly what he meant. "Kyle, I need you to listen to me very carefully," I said. "Madison is extremely dangerous, and she's using the exact same playbook she used on me. Do you have any way to document her interactions with Lucy?" Kyle was tech-savvy and had already started screenshotting some of Madison's more suspicious text messages to Lucy. He also had access to Lucy's phone with her permission, and had noticed that Madison was texting her constantly, often late at night when Kyle wasn't around. I walked Kyle through everything I'd learned about Madison's manipulation tactics and helped him develop a strategy to expose her before she could do serious damage to his relationship. The plan was similar to what I'd done with David. Kyle would pretend to go along with Madison's suggestions while documenting everything. He'd let her think her plan was working while gathering evidence of her manipulation. It took about 2 weeks for Madison to show her true colors completely. She suggested that Kyle and Lucy take a break to explore their feelings. She offered to help Lucy figure out what she really wanted in a relationship. She even arranged for Lucy to have dinner with the coworker she'd been pushing, framing it as a friendly career networking opportunity. But Kyle was ready for her. He'd been recording phone calls, screenshotting messages, and documenting every instance of Madison's interference in their relationship. When Madison finally made her move, suggesting that Lucy would be happier with someone who really understood her potential, Kyle had everything he needed. He showed Lucy all the evidence at once, the same way I'd shown David. The systematic nature of Madison's manipulation, the way she'd been planting seeds of doubt while positioning herself as Lucy's trusted advisor, the identical tactics she'd used in previous campaigns against other women. Lucy was horrified. She seemed so genuine, she told me during a three-way call with Kyle. She made me feel like she really cared about my happiness and wanted what was best for me. That's exactly how she operates, I explained. She's very good at making you feel like she's on your side while she's actually working against you. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Lucy decided she wanted to confront Madison directly. Kyle and I both tried to talk her out of it, warning her that Madison was unpredictable and might escalate the situation. But Lucy was determined. She needs to know that her behavior has consequences, Lucy said. And I want to hear her explain herself. So Lucy set up a meeting with Madison under the pretense of wanting to talk about her relationship concerns. Kyle and I coached her on how to stay safe and document the conversation. Lucy met Madison at a coffee shop, wearing a small recording device Kyle had bought online. The conversation started normally, with Madison playing her usual supportive friend role. But when Lucy started asking pointed questions about some of Madison's advice, things got interesting. Madison, you've been telling me that Kyle doesn't seem committed to our relationship, Lucy said. But when I ask you for specific examples, you can't really give me any. Why is that? Madison's response was classic. I'm just picking up on subtle things. The way he talks about your future together, the way he prioritizes his own interests over yours. It's not any one thing, it's more of a pattern. What pattern specifically? Well, it's hard to explain. It's more about what he doesn't say, what he doesn't do. Lucy pressed harder. You also suggested I have dinner with Marcus from work because you thought we'd have great chemistry. Why would you say that if you thought Kyle and I had a strong relationship? Madison started to look uncomfortable. I just think you should know all your options. You're so amazing, Lucy. You could have anyone you want. But I want Kyle. So why are you encouraging me to explore other options? That's when Madison's mask started to slip. Look, Lucy, I care about you. And sometimes caring about someone means helping them see things they can't see themselves. Kyle is fine, but he's not special. You deserve someone extraordinary. Someone like who? Madison paused for a long moment. Then, someone like my friend Jake. I've been wanting to introduce you to for weeks now. He's successful, ambitious, really knows how to treat a woman right. Lucy had never heard of any Jake before. Madison had been pushing Marcus, not Jake. She was making up a new love interest on the spot. Madison, Lucy said quietly, I think you've been lying to me. And that's when Madison completely lost it. The recording Lucy shared with us later was chilling. Madison went from sweet and supportive to vicious and cruel in a matter of seconds. She called Lucy naive and stupid for not taking her advice. She said Kyle was obviously using her, and that Lucy was too blind to see it. She accused Lucy of being jealous of Madison's success and happiness. You know what your problem is? Madison snarled. You're so desperate to be in a relationship that you'll settle for anyone who gives you attention. Kyle doesn't love you. He just loves having someone who worships him. And you're too pathetic to demand better. Lucy ended the recording and left the coffee shop. Madison followed her to the parking lot, shouting about how Lucy would regret not listening and would come crawling back when Kyle inevitably hurt her. Other customers in the parking lot were staring. Someone even asked Lucy if she needed help getting away from the crazy woman who was harassing her. Lucy and Kyle took the recording to the police and filed a harassment report. They also shared it with Madison's current employer. She'd finally found a job at a smaller marketing firm and posted a warning on local community Facebook groups. The response was swift and devastating. Madison was fired from her new job within 48 hours. Her landlord received so many complaints about her behavior that they started eviction proceedings. The local yoga studio where she'd met Lucy banned her from the premises. But the best part was what happened next. Lucy's warning post in the local Facebook groups was shared hundreds of times. Women all over Austin started coming forward with their own stories about Madison. Apparently, she'd been targeting multiple people simultaneously, using the same manipulation tactics on different victims. One woman named Maria shared that Madison had tried to convince her that her husband was cheating. He wasn't, and had offered to investigate by following him around town. Another woman named Jennifer said Madison had infiltrated her friend group and systematically turned everyone against each other with gossip and lies. The most disturbing story came from a woman named Patricia, who said Madison had targeted her teenage daughter, convincing the girl that her parents were too controlling and that she should move out and live with Madison instead. She was grooming my daughter to see me and my husband as the enemy, Patricia wrote. Thank God Lucy posted this warning before my daughter made any irreversible decisions. The pattern was clear. Madison hadn't learned anything from the consequences she'd faced after targeting me. If anything, she'd gotten more brazen and was targeting multiple victims at once. The Austin community effectively ran Madison out of town. She couldn't find work, couldn't maintain housing, and couldn't show her face in public without being recognized as the woman who manipulated and harassed people. She moved again, this time to Phoenix. And the cycle started all over again. Over the next 2 years, I heard from women in Phoenix, Denver, and eventually Las Vegas. Each time, Madison used the same playbook. Target someone with something she wanted, befriend them, slowly poison their relationships while positioning herself as their savior, then move in for the kill when they were most vulnerable. But each time, her victims were more prepared. The network of women who'd been targeted by Madison had grown, and we'd gotten very good at sharing information and supporting each other. When Madison showed up in a new city, word would spread quickly through local social media groups. Her reputation preceded her wherever she went. The last I heard, Madison was working at a call center in Las Vegas under her maiden name, living in a studio apartment and apparently keeping to herself. According to a woman named Carol, who recognized her at a grocery store, Madison looked haggard and defeated, like someone who'd given up on life. Part of me felt sorry for her. Despite everything she'd done, it was hard to imagine living with that level of isolation and consequences following you everywhere you went. But then I remembered all the women she'd hurt, all the relationships she'd destroyed, all the psychological trauma she'd inflicted on people who'd trusted her. And I remembered that even when faced with those consequences, she'd continued to target new victims instead of getting help or changing her behavior. Madison had every opportunity to learn from her mistakes and become a better person. Instead, she'd chosen to double down on her destructive patterns until they consumed her entire life. That was her choice, not mine. As for me, I'd found a strange sense of purpose in helping Madison's other victims. Kyle and Lucy became close friends of ours, and we all stayed in touch with the network of women who'd been targeted over the years. We created a private Facebook group where we could share information and support each other. When someone new joined the group with a Madison story, we'd help them document the abuse and connect with resources in their area. We also started recognizing the patterns of manipulation that went beyond just Madison. The tactics she used, love bombing, gaslighting, triangulation, isolation, were common tools used by emotional abusers and manipulators everywhere. Our little support group evolved into something bigger, a resource for anyone dealing with manipulation and psychological abuse in their relationships. We partnered with local domestic violence organizations to provide education about emotional abuse tactics and how to recognize them. I even started doing speaking engagements at women's organizations and college campuses, sharing my story and teaching people how to recognize and respond to manipulation campaigns. The irony wasn't lost on me. Madison's attempt to destroy my life had led me to a calling I never would have discovered otherwise. Her cruelty had revealed a strength in me I didn't know I had, and helping other people find that same strength became one of the most fulfilling parts of my life. David often jokes that Madison was the best thing that ever happened to our relationship. Going through her manipulation campaign together taught us to communicate on a level we never would have reached otherwise. We learned to trust each other completely, to recognize threats to our relationship, and to present a united front against anyone who tried to divide us. We also learned the value of choosing our friends carefully. The people in our lives now are genuine supporters who celebrate our happiness and would never dream of trying to sabotage it. Last month, David and I had our 3rd wedding anniversary. We celebrated by renewing our vows in a small ceremony with just our closest family and friends. As I looked around at the people who'd supported us through everything, including the Madison saga, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Madison had tried to isolate me and destroy my support system. Instead, she'd helped me identify who my real friends were and shown me the importance of building relationships based on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. During the vow renewal ceremony, David's best man made a toast about how our relationship had been tested by fire and emerged stronger than ever. Everyone laughed, knowing the story he was referencing. But as I looked at David and thought about everything we'd been through together, I realized the toast was absolutely true. Madison had thrown everything she had at our relationship, and we'd not only survived, we'd thrived. That night, as David and I were cleaning up after the party, I found myself thinking about revenge and justice, and the difference between the two. Revenge is about hurting someone because they hurt you. Justice is about protecting yourself and others from people who cause harm. What I'd done to Madison felt like justice. I'd exposed her behavior not just to get back at her, but to protect future victims and hold her accountable for her choices. The fact that she'd continued targeting people, even after facing consequences, proved that the exposure was necessary. But the real victory wasn't destroying Madison's life. It was building something beautiful from the ashes of her attempted destruction. I had a marriage stronger than ever, friendships deeper than I'd ever imagined, and a sense of purpose I'd never expected to find. Madison had tried to take everything from me and had instead given me gifts I could never have asked for. As David and I finished putting away the last of the wedding gifts and photo albums from our celebration, he pulled me into a dance in our empty living room. "No music?" I asked, laughing. "Don't need it," he said, spinning me around. "I've got everything I need right here." And as we swayed together in the silence of our home, surrounded by evidence of a life built on love and trust and genuine connection, I couldn't help but smile. Madison had tried to write the story of my life as a tragedy. Instead, she'd given me the plot for the greatest love story I could have imagined. The sweetest revenge of all was simply living well. Update, 6 months later. I debated whether to add this update, but given how many people have reached out after reading my original post, I felt like I owed it to everyone who's been following this story. 3 weeks ago, I got a call that I never expected. "Is this Jessica Hamilton?" The voice was shaky, uncertain. "Yes, who is this?" This is Madison Riley. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to talk to you." My first instinct was to hang up immediately. David and I had built such a peaceful life since the Madison drama ended, and I had no interest in letting her back into our world, even for a conversation. But something in her voice stopped me. She sounded broken. Completely different from the confident manipulator I remembered. "I'm listening," I said carefully, putting the call on speaker so David could hear. "I'm in rehab," Madison said. "Not for substances, for mental health stuff. Personality disorders, manipulation tactics, all of it. I've been here for 4 months." I stayed silent, not sure where this was going. "I know this doesn't fix anything," she continued, "and I know you have every right to hang up on me, but my therapist says part of my recovery involves taking accountability for the people I've hurt, making amends where possible." "Madison, if this is some new manipulation—" "It's not," she interrupted. "I know you have no reason to believe me, but it's not. I've lost everything, Jess. Everything. My family won't talk to me. I can't hold down a job. I can't maintain any relationships. I'm 31 years old and I have nothing to show for my life except a trail of people I've hurt." There was a long pause. I could hear her crying. The therapist made me write down every person I could remember manipulating or hurting over the years. The list was, God, Jess, the list was so long. And you were at the top because what I did to you was the worst thing I've ever done to anyone. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you do it?" Madison was quiet for so long I thought she might have hung up. "Honestly, because I was jealous, not just of David, but of everything you had. Your relationship, your stability, your ability to be genuinely happy for other people. I've never been able to feel that way. When I see someone else's happiness, all I can think about is how to take it for myself. That doesn't excuse what you did." "No, it doesn't. Nothing excuses it. I'm not calling to make excuses or ask for forgiveness. I'm calling because I owe you an apology, and because I want you to know that I'm finally getting help." She took a shaky breath. "I also wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For fighting back. For exposing me. For making sure there were consequences. Nobody had ever done that before. People just disappeared from my life when I hurt them. They never stood up to me or held me accountable. You did." "I didn't do it for you," I said honestly. "I did it to protect myself and other people." "I know, but it ended up helping me too, even though it took me years to realize it. If you hadn't fought back, I would have kept destroying people's lives indefinitely. The consequences you created were the only thing that eventually forced me to look at myself honestly." We talked for about an hour. Madison told me about her diagnosis, borderline personality disorder with narcissistic traits, her treatment plan, and the work she was doing to understand and change her patterns of behavior. She didn't ask for forgiveness, which I appreciated. She didn't try to minimize what she'd done or blame it entirely on mental illness. She took full responsibility for her choices and acknowledged the harm she'd caused. At the end of the call, she asked if I would be willing to participate in a mediated conversation with her therapist present, either in person or over video call. She said it would help her recovery process, but that she understood if I wasn't comfortable with it. I told her I'd think about it. David and I talked about it for days. Part of me wanted nothing to do with Madison ever again, but another part of me was curious about this apparent transformation and whether it was genuine. We decided that I would participate in one mediated conversation, with the understanding that it was for Madison's therapy process and not the beginning of any kind of ongoing relationship. The conversation happened 2 weeks ago, over video call, with Madison's therapist facilitating. Madison looked completely different, thinner, with shorter hair and no makeup, wearing what looked like pajamas. She looked exhausted, but somehow more real than I'd ever seen her. The conversation was difficult but productive. Madison answered every question I had about her motivations and methods. She walked through her manipulation campaign step by step, explaining her thought process at each stage. "I told myself I was protecting you," she said at one point. "That David wasn't good enough for you, and I was helping you see that. But really, I wanted him for myself, and I was willing to destroy your relationship to get him." And when he rejected you? I asked. I was furious, not because I loved him, but because my plan had failed. It was never really about David at all. It was about winning, about proving I could take something you valued. The most chilling part was how calculated it had all been. Madison had studied my personality, identified my insecurities, and crafted her manipulation campaign specifically to exploit my trusting nature and tendency to avoid conflict. I knew you wouldn't fight back immediately, she admitted. I was counting on you being too nice, too conflict-averse to call me out directly. I thought I could gaslight you into believing you were the problem. What changed? David asked. Why didn't the plan work? Madison smiled ruefully. I underestimated her. I thought Jess was weak because she was kind. I didn't realize that kindness could coexist with strength. When she finally fought back, she was more strategic and ruthless than I'd ever been. The therapist asked if I had any questions about Madison's current treatment or future plans. Are you going to target other people when you get out of here? I asked bluntly. That's what we're working on, the therapist answered. Madison has committed to ongoing outpatient therapy, medication management, and a structured accountability system with her treatment team. Madison nodded. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I'm hoping I can at least make sure I never hurt anyone else the way I hurt you. At the end of the session, Madison asked if there was anything she could do to make amends beyond just getting treatment. I thought about it for a moment. Actually, yes, there are women all over the country who are dealing with manipulation and emotional abuse in their relationships. If you're serious about making amends, help them. I told her about the support network that had grown out of her victims and the educational work we'd been doing about recognizing manipulation tactics. Would you be willing to share your story from the perpetrator's perspective? I asked. Help people understand how these campaigns work from the inside? Madison looked terrified at the prospect, but she agreed. Over the past few weeks, she's been working with her therapist to create educational materials about manipulation tactics from the abuser's perspective. The content is disturbing but incredibly valuable. Madison breaks down exactly how she identified targets, built trust, planted seeds of doubt, and executed her manipulation campaigns. She explains the psychological tactics she used and how victims can recognize them early. The materials are being used by domestic violence organizations and therapists who work with abuse victims. Madison's insights into the manipulator's mindset are helping people understand that the abuse they experienced was calculated and intentional, not their fault. It's strange to think that Madison's cruelty has ultimately contributed to helping other people heal from similar abuse. There's a poetic justice to it that I find deeply satisfying. As for whether Madison's transformation is genuine, I honestly don't know. She seemed sincere during our conversation, but she was always a skilled actor. The real test will be how she behaves over the long term, when no one is watching, and the immediate consequences of her past actions have faded. But here's what I do know. Whether Madison changes or not doesn't affect my life anymore. I've moved beyond needing her to be different, or better, or sorry. My happiness isn't dependent on her redemption. David and I are expecting our first child in the spring. We're buying a bigger house, planning family vacations, and building the kind of life we dreamed about during those dark months, when Madison was trying to tear us apart. The network of women who survived Madison's manipulation and similar abuse from other people has grown into a thriving community of support and education. We're making a real difference in people's lives, and that work feels like the most meaningful thing I've ever done. Sometimes people ask if I regret the way I handled the Madison situation, if I think I was too harsh, too public, too vindictive in my response. My answer is always the same. I sleep peacefully at night knowing that I protected myself and countless other people from someone who was causing real harm. Madison's consequences were proportional to her actions, and they ultimately led to positive changes for everyone involved. That's not revenge, that's justice. And justice, it turns out, really is the sweetest revenge of all.